Take a roll call. Okay, I'll start with Sung Oh. Sung?
Here, Greg. Sorry.
Thank you. No worries. Thanks. Okay, Maria Serpa.
Here.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
Here.
Thank you. Debbie Veal. Debbie? Oh, she's supposed to be back at 12:30. I guess she didn't get here yet. Okay, Albert Wong. Albert? Not back yet. Shirley is not with us. Ricardo Sanchez. Ricardo?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we don't have a quorum yet, so we're gonna have to wait a few minutes.
This is the moderator that gives me a chance to break in. Patrick
Okay.
Leroy, it does appear that you are the next on our agenda, but it does not appear I can promote you to panelist. When you joined the WebEx, it appears you clicked the join by browser rather than the join now button. So if I could get you to disconnect, rejoin the meeting by clicking the join now button, that way I can promote you and you would be able to utilize your video and microphone at that point. Again, that was for Patrick Leroy.
Okay, has Albert Wong returned yet? Also, please put on your videos, everybody. I see only a couple videos on. Okay, we need Albert and we need Debbie Veal. Moderator, could you promote Debbie Veal to panelist? She's apparently on, but she's not promoted. Moderator, are you there?
Yes, I have promoted her as well as Patrick Leroy.
Okay, we still don't have Albert Wong though, right?
I've just promoted Albert Wong as
Okay,
well.
he's there. Great. Okay. All right, we are ready to go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. We are going to begin the third of fourth petitions for early termination of probation. We're inviting at this time Mr. Patrick Nelson Leroy. And I want to make sure that you are on the panel, Mr. Leroy. I don't see him yet on mine. Just a minute.
It doesn't appear that his camera's on yet. Hey, great. I'm on now, great. This is Albert.
His camera's on. I see him.
Yeah, he's there.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Leroy. Can you hear us?
He may be muted.
Yeah,
This is the moderator. It does appear that we may have lost his audio connection. Mr. Leroy, if you need to go up to the top where it says audio and video, I do see that we are reconnecting. If you could unmute your microphone and conduct a microphone check, Mr. Leroy.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank
Yes.
you.
Sorry, I was on the phone, but then it disconnected.
That's okay.
well, good. We're all here.
Yep.
And at this time, I'd like to go on the record. And we are now hearing the matter of the petition for early termination of probation. The petitioner is Mr. Patrick Nelson Leroy. This is a matter heard before a quorum of the California Board of Pharmacy. It has the case number for the board 4642, as well Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2021-050-628. Representing the Department of Justice is Deputy Attorney General Christina T. Jarvis. Appearing on his own behalf is petitioner Patrick Leroy. Mr. Leroy, welcome. I believe you were here this morning. Is that the case?
I was here all morning, yes, sir.
So you have had opportunity now to observe at least two of these hearings.
I have.
I'd like to proceed at this time by inviting Deputy Attorney General Christina Jarvis, to give the board members a summary overview of this matter, and then we'll proceed from there with your testimony and questioning by the board. Ms. Jarvis?
Thank you, Your Honor, and good afternoon. I am Deputy Attorney General Christina Jarvis, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General for the people of the state of California. My role here is not adversarial, but it is intended to protect the public interest. This matter arose through the filing of an accusation, which resulted in a stipulated settlement whereby, effective May 19th, 2017, petitioner's license was revoked, with the revocation stayed for a 5-year period of probation with certain specified terms and conditions. And the underlying facts are extensive and complex, so I will assume that the board has read the second amended accusation underlying this matter. Thus, here is a list of the causes for discipline without much in the way of further detail. Petitioner was employed by Optimal Pharmacies, Inc., DBA, Komodo Custom Care Pharmacy, as a pharmacist, and was the pharmacist in charge for approximately 7.5 years. During the time petitioner was the PIC, he caused or allowed the pharmacy to act as a manufacturer and a wholesaler without a permit by doing sterile compounding prepared for non-patient specific use. Specifically, the compounded drugs were provided to veterinary offices and to another entity for resale to the ultimate consumer. Additionally, petitioner failed to transcribe orally transmitted prescriptions to writing, failed to include ingredients used in sterile injectable products on their labels, assigned beyond use dates for compounded drugs that was beyond the expiration date of the ingredients used in the compounding, provided compounded products on 17 occasions to customers in 8 other states where the pharmacy did not hold licensure, failed to quarantine batch-produced compounds until after end product testing confirmed sterility, failed to establish and follow a written program of training and performance for sterile compounding, failed to actually complete training for staff performing sterile compounding, failed to complete a validation process before preparing sterile compounding products, failed to document any methodology to establish a beyond use date exceeding manufacturer's guidelines by 62 to 76 days, compounded commercially available products, and dispensed controlled substances to providers who were self-prescribing the controlled substance. Now, petitioner has been 100% compliant with probation, and the requisite time has passed to allow him to petition for early termination of probation. If you do the math from the time, the May 19th, 2017 effective date of the probation, petitioner has served approximately 4 years of his probation term just last week about. Now, in his petition packet, petitioner provided documentation that he has volunteered at International Education Corporation's UEI College in Bakersfield to present the importance of pharmacy and medical office communications, and with the Active Bakersfield Alliance producing the Bakersfield Marathon. Petitioner also submitted CE certificates totaling 188.5 hours from May of 2017 through May of 2021, and 5 letters of recommendation, 3 of which were able to be verified by board staff. For all of the letters that were verified, the writers stated that they knew of the accusation and petitioner's actions in being disciplined, as well as petitioner's activities since the discipline was imposed. Additionally, letter writers made statements such as that petitioner is willing to accept responsibility, has leadership abilities, great attention to detail, is consistent, caring, accurate, and efficient, and displays excellent knowledge and skills. Exhibit 1 consists of all the documents described above as the petition packet, including the underlying decision and order, the notice of hearing bringing us here today, a consent for electronic recording, and the memorandum to the board. And I would ask that those documents as a whole be marked and moved as Exhibit 1.
So marked and admitted as Exhibit 1.
Thank you, Your Honor. Then it is now petitioner's opportunity to address the board.
Hi. Thanks for your time today. I would just like to.
Just a minute. First, good afternoon, Mr. Leroy. I need to swear you in. That's why I interrupted you.
I apologize.
Would you raise your right hand, please? And do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I'll just make a quick reminder. The board has received and considered and read your petition and supporting documents. This is now your opportunity to highlight what you wish for the commissioner and then to answer questions. Proceed, please.
Okay. I would like to just read from a brief statement that I had prepared, and then I will try to actually skip over things that were covered in Ms. Jarvis's opening there. As stated in the stipulation agreement, I do take full responsibility for blame as the PIC of record for the compounding pharmacy at the time of this case. I should have corrected any and all deficiencies at the pharmacy prior to the board inspector having to point them out. This truly was my failure. This case was primarily based on the allegation at the time of a retail pharmacy acting as a manufacturer or wholesaler. Along with that allegation, there were many other infractions cited by the inspector. These multiple other infractions were primarily a result of improper documentation on the part of the pharmacy, its staff, and of course myself. I resigned as PIC and left the compounding pharmacy in November of 2014 to become a retail staff pharmacist at our Delano location under the same pharmacy owners. My pharmacy staff will tell you that I excel as one of their most trusted staff pharmacists. I have not compounded medication since leaving the compounding pharmacy in 2014, and I do not plan to compound again. I also have no plans or intentions on becoming a pharmacist in charge as well. I would, however, like to be able to supervise and mentor intern pharmacists, which is currently prohibited by my probation. My experience with the law, with the board, it has put me in a unique position to share specific wisdom and knowledge with the next generation of pharmacists. Today, my daily goal is to do what's best for my patients' health, their wellness, and their safety. I no longer take for granted that I know what I'm allowed to do as a pharmacist. I research the law and I determine what actions to take best based on California and federal laws. It is truly an honor to be a licensed pharmacist in California, and I feel I've earned the trust of my patients, my staff, and the California Board of Pharmacy to reinstate my license completely. I'm in full compliance, as was stated. I've completed 4 years, just over 4 years of my 5-year probation with no incident. And I've completed the 188.5 hours of continuing education. 68 of those hours were part of my legal obligation to maintain licensure at this point in time. This yields approximately 120 hours of the extra continuing education rehabilitation. I also did the additional, it was the optional 40 hours of CE that was part of that 120 for the compounding requirement, which stated if I did this additional 40 that I could go back to compounding. I completed that within the first year of my probation, but I did that not to return to compounding, but to show the board that I am eager to rehabilitate myself. So she did cover the community service with UEI College and the Bakersfield Marathon, so I'll move on past that. Along with my required communication to the Board of Pharmacy with my probation inspector, Hilda, I feel I do go above to make sure she's informed of and aware of my activities and location. An example, we submit our monthly schedule to the board. I would email her after the fact to let her know if there was any changes in that schedule or if there was a change in my location so that she was always informed and aware of my actions and my locations. Hilda was at the Delano Pharmacy location for an inspection of our newly hired PIC this last year. And I was working a shift at the Bakersfield location when I was informed that she was at the Delano location. So I contacted Hilda at the Delano location because I was concerned that that I did not make her aware of my location at that time. And she stated no, that she was aware. She was just there primarily for the PIC inspection for the Delano location pharmacy. We then proceeded to have a probation check-in over the phone. My point to this is I've always made the extra effort to attempt and to try my best to comply with the fullest terms of my probation. And that's all I have. I thank the board for their time and consideration on this petition for early termination of probation.
Thank you, Mr. Leroy. I'm going to invite Ms. Jarvis to ask you some questions now.
Yes, is it Doc?
Yeah, I'm a PharmD.
So Dr. Leroy, I understand that you were the PIC for what, 7.5 years approximately?
That sounds about right.
And then you still work for the same employer, right? Just at a different location?
Correct.
So what was it that prohibited you from bringing the pharmacy into compliance while you were the PIC?
So what prohibited me from at the time? Part of it was a lack of true, honest knowledge of the law. There's things that I did the compounding self-assessment, sterile compounding self-assessment. There's those things that I did where I felt that the pharmacy was lining up with those things. A lot of it was how I was trained at the time. Honestly, I was trained to document things, I don't want to say illegally, but incorrectly, which was pointed out to me from that first inspection. Is and just as an example, when I was trained to primarily, it was the active ingredient that took the actual documentation of an expiration date. And the other ingredients below it on the formula worksheet, they were kind of like FYI. That didn't really matter. That's how I was trained at the time. All of the ingredients that were written up in that process as expired were shown to the inspector to be not expired actual medications, but it was the actual documentation of the process that was actually incorrect. Did that answer that question?
I think so. And one question that I had, and I'll just sort of cut to the chase as to what I'm driving at.
Sure.
You began working for this same employer right out of pharmacy school, right? Or even still as an intern pharmacist?
So I started as an intern pharmacist with the University of Pacific, and then I got hired with the pharmacy, where I was in the Delano location for probably not very long, maybe a month. And then they had a shortage at the compounding pharmacy, which they sent me to fill that shortage because I had that previous internship at that location.
Okay. And then you had only been an actual pharmacist, not intern, for about a year when you became the PIC. Is that about right?
Just short of a year, yes.
Okay. Looking back on that, do you feel that that was sufficient time to take on the mantle of PIC?
I probably should not have taken on the mantle of PIC at that time.
Why did you do so?
I felt an obligation to the owner at the time. I'm a very loyal person, and I just felt that loyalty and that need that I needed to do that position for them, because honestly, in Bakersfield and Delano, where we work, it's a very hard to staff region. There's not a lot of extra pharmacists around. So any shortage here tends to be more of a burden, especially to the owners or the management teams. So I just felt that obligation that I needed to step up and become the PIC. And honestly, I thought I was doing a great job until that 2010 inspection with Roger and the Board of Pharmacy, where he did point out those things, because once again, I would go through the self-assessments and I thought that I was complying and following all the laws. It just came down to, that lack of proper documentation. Processing orders as a prescription versus processing them as an invoiced order. Had I processed them as an invoiced order, then it would not have been a prescriber self-prescribing. It would have been him purchasing for his practice. So it was really just documentation errors and how things were interpreted.
Okay. While you were PIC, did you do continuing education that was designed for PICs?
I did. To find specific PIC CE, that's a very hard thing to do. But I generally was looking at pharmacy law. I was looking at compounding things. I would be looking at, my list, the complete list was sent to you. As far as what each topic is, I honestly don't have the thought process to actually go through each one right now. However, I definitely looked for PIC information. But once again, after stepping down from being PIC, that is not in my future plan at all to be a PIC. I feel as though I failed that process, but as a staff pharmacist, I do a very excellent job for my patients and their safety.
Yeah, and actually my next question was along those same lines. If you said that you have no intention of sort of stepping back into that PIC role, do you see that as being your decision for the rest of your career? Or do you think if you got more experience and training that you might be willing to take that on again?
So as of right now, it's not part of my plan in the future at all. There could be a possibility where there was a training process that took place, an opportunity that took place, or, like I said, I do have loyalty and obligation, things where I feel like, okay, I have to help out in this capacity. But as of right now, it's not anything I'm looking to venture into.
Okay. I have no other questions at this time, Your Honor. I will turn it over to the board.
Dr. Lipp, if you take the lead, please.
Actually, thank you. I'm not a doctor.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I'm a CPA, but that's, I have an honorary doctorate degree from my alma mater, so you can call me whatever you want. Thank you.
President, Doctor.
Yeah, I do have a question, and my question is related to one of your reference letters. Jackson Herring refers to you as the fall guy. Do you feel that you were the fall guy?
I don't feel like I was the fall guy, but I do feel like I was trained in a system that was already set up. I went to work for a system that was already set up and designed, and I made changes in that system, just not fast enough. I didn't catch up to the law quick enough.
Okay, so you don't blame the situation. You're taking responsibility yourself for the things that happen.
I take full responsibility, yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have. So I will now call the names of others. I'll start with Maria Serpa.
Thank
You
you.
have questions?
I just have one question for Dr. Leroy, and that is the sterile compounding process is very complex, and you were deep in it for many years, and at this point have decided not to continue to practice in that area. But you did take on the additional CE that was optional as part of your probation to educate yourself more on sterile compounding. Can you explain to us a little bit as to why you did that and what did you learn from that process?
So I learned from the process that I was doing things correctly. It basically reinforced the practices that I already had in my pharmacy practice at the time. So additionally, I wouldn't say that I learned a lot more, but I did reinforce that information that I did already previously have.
So did you not learn anything from the CEs?
No, I learned some things from the CEs at the time, but I didn't actually have any practical approach for it afterwards. So I got gained information, but I actually haven't sterile compounded since prior, probably till 2013, 2014. So I didn't actually have an application process for the information that I learned.
I understand that. I think what I'm looking for is, did you have an aha experience as to, wow, I really didn't understand this, or wow, I didn't really know this process, or any those aha wow moments from your CE?
So not that I recall. Once again, I feel as though this case is really primarily a poor documentation process. So that there really are things that look and appear to be one way, but it's really the lack of documentation on my part, or the lack of structure of that documentation, that makes it appear that way, when really some of it wasn't actually that way. I don't know if that makes sense.
I guess I'm a little confused, because you say you take responsibility, but yet
I 100% take responsibility.
So that's what I'm trying to get out of the CE process and your education. What kinds of things did you find different that you're remorseful about, or would do differently? Or because essentially you're kind of testifying at this moment that you already knew all these things, you just didn't document it. And I don't think that's what you want to say.
No, that's not what I want to say. And you kind of pointed it out, I guess, a little correctly for me. So I do feel bad that medications were prepared in a non-patient specific fashion. I don't feel as though those things were prepared incorrectly, is kind of what I was taking from the sterile CE information. The sterile CE information is there to basically train you how to do these sterile processes correctly, and then go through USP 797 and how to do these legally, which at the time that I took those, I was already, quite a few years removed from that sterile compounding environment. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is Sung Oh. You have questions?
Thank you for your testimony. I do not have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Albert Wong, do you have questions? Are you unmuted?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
here. Since you're still working for the same company, and the probation really does not affect your job. The only thing I heard is that you no longer can teach the interns or also. So why you want an early termination?
So the early termination would definitely help out with the pharmacy scheduling process, because I am limited on my schedule availability based on my supervisor's schedule as well. So the pharmacy management team has to balance out the actual workflow schedule based on when I work and with my supervisor working, versus, I'm not able to practice off on my own. So it is a burden to the pharmacy management team as well.
But at the meantime, you're working full-time though, right?
Correct, I do work full-time.
Okay, no further question.
Thank you, Albert. Okay, Debbie Veal.
Hi, Patrick. Just a couple questions. Thank you for your transparency. So first off, so your employer, once this all happened, your employer was willing to kind of move you over to their non-compounding facility? Is that
correct?
Okay.
My employer was very satisfied with my work ethic and the work that I did perform at the pharmacy.
Okay. Let's see. And so I guess trying to get back to what Maria was asking you. So the error was that you were doing sterile compounding in bulk rather than at the patient level? Is that?
So primarily a lot of what the medications were at the time were for veterinary medicine. And so there was medications that weren't available that the veterinarian doctor would contact us, and then they would take, maybe they ordered these 10 injectables because they were taking those out to the farm for 10 or 12 horses that they were taking care of at the time. So to answer your question, yes, but also that's really not how I felt like it was happening at the time, even though that is ultimately what was taking place.
And so the error on your part was what?
Well, I had a big error in, I would say, a lapse of judgment. Part of it was the management team for the pharmacy that I worked for. I contacted the Board of Pharmacy, and part of it was trying to figure out where is this line between the for office use exemption. When can a doctor say, I want to use this as an office use medication versus it being a wholesale manufacturing process. And it was my fault but we didn't ever get clarification, and I would talk with the owners and we never got clarification. At that point, I should have just stopped the practice and said, sorry, we're no longer going to do this. But I didn't have, I would say, the confidence at the time to tell my owners that was my own lapse of judgment. I should have stopped it and not waited for someone else to come in and stop it for me.
Okay, got it. And that happened once you became PIC, or was that happening before you became PIC?
The business was structured long before I became PIC.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much again for your transparency.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next is Ricardo Sanchez. Ricardo?
No comments.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Jig Patel?
Albert already asked my question. No comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, Judge Lou, that's all of our comments.
All right, the questions having been completed, let's move to the closing statements. Dr. Leroy, feel free to sum up any final thoughts you wish the board to consider.
I have no more comments. I appreciate the time. I appreciate taking the time to listen to my case, and hopefully things will work out.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Petitioner's probation monitor states that petitioner has been cooperative throughout his probationary period and understands at this point that as a pharmacist, he is in a position that can affect a person or public safety. Therefore, I have no recommendation, and I submit the matter to the judgment of the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Leroy. The board will consider your case later this afternoon, and a decision will issue. This matter is now off the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as moderator, if you could assist us in having Jadine Ma on our panel.
This is the moderator, and it does appear that we do not have Jadine Ma online.
Do you recall whether she was here earlier today?
Unfortunately, I do not.
What is the board's practice in these instances?
Well, we've never had this before, as long as I've been on the board. So,
May I suggest that since we are dealing with a remote situation, perhaps we can take a 5 or 10 minute break and have board staff, if they have the information,
try to
contact.
reach her.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, let me try that. Thank you.
We'll go off for 10 minutes.
Yes, let's go off. Okay.
Thanks.
I'm also emailing Miss Ma, or Dr. Ma, probably.
Hi, Ms. Ma. I just wanted to ask you, were you able to observe any of the hearings this morning?
Yes, I've been on the hearing since the first moment.
Oh, okay. So you've, at the very least, you've heard the audio and you
Oh,
heard
yes.
earlier conversations about what we're doing.
Yeah, I
Okay.
could hear and watch everything. Both.
Very good. Ms. Mom, I just wanted to ask you, were you able to observe anything this morning?
I did. I've been on the hearing since the first moment.
Oh, okay. So you've, at the very least, you've heard the audio.
Yes.
Conversations about what we're doing.
Yeah, I could hear and watch everything. Both.
Very good.
I did.
I think we're still waiting for a few board members.
Let me take a roll call then. Okay. Debbie Veal? Debbie?
Here,
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Maria Serpa?
Here.
Thank you. Sung Oh?
I'm here, Gray.
Thank you. Jig Patel?
Still waiting for a few
Here.
board members.
Jig?
I'm here.
I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know what's going on. Albert Wong?
Yeah, great.
Okay. And Ricardo?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
I think we're all here. We can go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. Again, we're on the record. We're hearing a petition for early termination of probation brought by Jadine Ma. She has number 45475 and board case number 5530. This also has Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2021-050587. There is a quorum of the Board of Pharmacy present. Ms. Ma is also present. Ms. Ma had indicated off the record that she observed the previous three hearings and is familiar with the procedures that we will be following. At this time, I would like to invite Ms. Jarvis, who is representing the Department of Justice, to provide an overview of this case to the board members, and we'll go from there. Ms. Jarvis.
Thank you, Your Honor. And good afternoon. I am Deputy Attorney General Christina Jarvis, and I am appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General for the people of the state of California. My role is not adversarial, but it is intended to protect the public interest. This matter arose through the filing of an accusation, after which petitioner entered into stipulated settlements with the board for both her license and the pharmacy license. Both settlements became effective on June 29th, 2017, and provided that petitioners' licenses would be revoked, with the revocation stayed for a 5-year probation period with certain specified terms and conditions of probation. Once again, in regards to the parties, petitioner Ma is a part owner of Hope Pharmacy, which is the IV Family Pharmacy, doing business as Hope Pharmacy. So I will generally refer to the pharmacy as Hope Pharmacy. Petitioner Ma was also the pharmacist in charge at all times relevant to the proceeding. And therefore, when I speak of actions taken either by petitioner Ma or the pharmacy, the actions can usually be assumed to be taken by petitioner Ma on behalf of the pharmacy or by other employees of the pharmacy, also on behalf of the pharmacy and as supervised and approved by petitioner Ma. The underlying facts of the matter are that in 2014, petitioner Ma notified the board that Hope Pharmacy had lost 1,790 tablets of hydrocodone, acetaminophen, 500 milligrams, sorry, I have a typo there, and 1,500 milliliters of promethazine with codeine via employee pilferage. Later, petitioner provided a full audit to the board showing that actually 16,919 tablets of the hydrocodone acetaminophen 5/500s, as well as 16,814 tablets of the same substance, but 10-325s, as well as 19,043 milliliters of promethazine with codeine were missing. These numbers clearly varied wildly from the initial report. Petitioner had discovered that not just one, but in fact 3 employees were stealing from the pharmacy. Petitioner fired the employees and filed police reports against all of them. When board inspectors did a physical inspection of the location, however, they could easily see how the employees had been able to steal. The place was disorganized, sloppy, and there were essentially no anti-theft measures taken. In fact, one of the employee thief's pharmacy technician license had expired, and petitioner was unaware. And then one of the red flags that led to petitioner's discovery of the thefts was that an unlicensed pharmacy clerk logged into the computer system using one of the thief pharmacy technician's login information and changed the status of a prescription from will call to return to stock. Unfortunately for the clerk and possibly the technician was actually not working that day and had no access to those computers, so the diversion was clear. Any of the technicians could also order medications, accept deliveries, or put the delivered drugs away, and there was no way for petitioner to really track who was performing which duties. In fact, when inspectors arrived at the pharmacy, there were Schedule II controlled substances sitting out on the counter with invoices present, unattended. Ultimately, there were 3 causes for discipline in the accusation: failing to safely and properly prepare, maintain, secure, and distribute drugs, failure to maintain records of acquisition, disposition, and current drug inventory, and failure to maintain theft and impairment policies and procedures. Now, at this time, petitioner is 100% compliant with her probation terms, and she has completed enough time on probation to be eligible to bring this petition before the board. In support of this petition, Petitioner Ma has provided CE certificates totaling 30 hours from June of 2018 through June of 2020. Petitioner also provided 5 letters of recommendation, 4 of which were verified by board staff. For all of the letters that were verified, the writers stated that they knew of the accusation and petitioner's actions in being disciplined, but only 2 out of the 4 were aware of petitioner's activities since the discipline was imposed. Additionally, letter writers made statements such as that petitioner now operates her pharmacy with strict control, has great character and utmost integrity, and has a reputation for professional ability, dedication, that she is kind, caring, and giving, and additionally that she speaks 3 languages, which is quite useful in her community, and she volunteers extensively in the community of her time and other products. Finally, petitioner provided a psychological evaluation that she had done by Martin H. Williams, PhD, who found that she was fit to act as a pharmacist. This evaluation was done in 2017, so prior to the disciplinary action. I believe it was part of the underlying case that the board already considered in this matter. And it should be noted that this doctor is usually hired to opine that licensed individuals facing discipline should not be disciplined, and has testified that licensing boards are biased against licensees. Now, Exhibit 1 consists of all of the documents described above as the petition packet and includes the underlying decision and order, the notice of hearing, a consent for electronic recording, and the memorandum to the board. And I would ask that those documents as a whole be marked as Exhibit 1 and admitted into evidence.
I've marked the documents as described as Exhibit 1. Ms. Ma, do you have any objection to all the documents going into evidence?
I think you're muted.
Recording and the memorandum to the board. And I would ask that those documents as a whole be marked as Exhibit 1.
This is the moderator. I apologize for cutting in, but JD Ma, are you still on the webinar via the internet?
I am. Can you hear me?
Could you? Yes, every time your microphone's open, we're having the delay. If you could please stop the webcast since you are in the WebEx now, so that way we're not getting that redundant feedback.
Yeah, so it was really hard to listen. I'm sorry. It was,
This is the moderator. I apologize for cutting in, but Judy, are you still on the web?
yes, yes, I am.
That's a delay.
That's what's happening.
Yes, if you could please stop the WebEx that you're listening to through the internet and just be joined through this WebEx connection, because we're hearing it all over again every time your microphone is open.
¿Cómo lo quito? Let me see. No.
And the webcast, not the WebEx.
We have turned off the wrong one.
Yeah, Ms. Moderator, is that the case that you have either one or the other or both at the same time? Because it may have been that you
Yes.
didn't.
She needs to have the WebEx open and
Right.
turn off the webcast.
Okay, we're off the record until we figure this out, so we'll stand by.
So I still have her connected via the WebEx. She just needs to end the webcast, which she should be viewing through the internet.
Is she muted on the WebEx?
She is currently muted on the WebEx.
All right, maybe she's already turned it off and just tell her to unmute.
This is the moderator, Miss Ma. I'm going to go ahead and manually unmute you to make sure we have fixed this issue.
The other
I'm
one's
still
still
hearing
on.
it in the background.
Quité. Estoy acá. Estoy en el
All right, well, we can't do it this way.
This is the moderator, Miss Ma. I'm going to go ahead and manually unmute you again. Were you able to end your webcast?
Can you hear me?
We can now.
We can, and it appears we've lost that feedback. So
So go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Jarvis, go ahead.
Okay.
I wanted to ask,
the moderator, Miss Ma, is going to go ahead and manually.
There it goes again. Are you on two different ways?
Ms. Moderator,
Hello?
is there someone that can contact her by telephone and talk to her?
I think that's what's happening right now.
Okay.
Yes, so as soon as we get that disconnected, I believe that there is somebody speaking with her currently.
Perfect.
Ain't you all glad that this gonna be end very soon?
Actually, we don't usually have this problem. Do we know who she's talking to?
This is the moderator. I'd be more than happy to manually unmute her and see if we've solved the problem.
Let's do that.
Okay. Miss Ma, this is the moderator. I am manually unmuting you to check your connection.
I don't know. Parece que está diciendo.
Miss Ma, can you please speak to see if we have the audio connection without the webcast in the background?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Sorry about that.
I think we're okay
Appears we are
now.
good.
See.
All right, before we get underway, Ms. Ma, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And are you getting feedback?
I'm not getting feedback now, but I was the whole entire time when
Well, we're getting it
Mr.
now.
Jarvis.
I think that's from the microphone being on. Was there anything stated by anybody, most particularly Ms. Jarvis, that you did not hear?
I mean, I heard everything, but it was that feedback, so I was trying to concentrate on either the first or the second one, and so it was a little bit difficult.
Is it your desire to hear again anything that was stated by me, by Ms. Ma, excuse me, by Ms. Jarvis or anyone else?
There was one part where I think she was stating about how I discovered, and I think there might have been something that was not correct, or maybe not quite accurate
Okay.
when I discovered. I don't know if it matters, but
Well, it matters. You need to hear it all.
Yeah, Ms. Jarvis, is that a good cue for you to know what she's referencing?
I believe so. So, Ms. Ma, what I was referring to is that I believe one of the ways in which you discovered the theft was that you saw a prescription that was in the will call in your computer, and you called the technician to see where it was, because the technician was not working that day. And then the technician told you, I believe it was returned to stock, something like that. And then you saw that technician had actually logged into the computer and put the prescription as returned to stock, but you were aware the technician was not there at the time, and therefore you discovered that it was actually the unlicensed pharmacy clerk who had logged into the computer using that technician's login information.
so more accurately would be, so I discovered that it was in.
Okay, just a minute.
Sorry.
You have your opportunity. I just wanted to make sure you heard everything. So you heard that explanation, correct?
Yes, I heard what you said.
All right. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back on the record. I'm going to make a few comments, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Jarvis to conclude, and then we'll to your part of the case, and you'll be able to address everything. All right?
Okay.
Okay, we are now back on the record. I want to indicate for the record that we were having some transmission issues because this apparently is being broadcast on both WebEx and webinar, resulted in some type of a feedback loop. When we were off the record, we spoke to Ms. Ma, and she was able to identify those areas where she was not completely clear on what had been communicated. And we have now addressed those matters, and I'm going to invite Ms. Jarvis to continue with your opening statements. But before even that, you had offered Exhibit 1 into evidence. I had asked Ms. Ma whether you had any objection to Exhibit 1 going into evidence. Do you know what Exhibit 1 is? Ms. Ma, Exhibit 1 was described as the petition packet and certain other descriptions.
Okay.
Do you remember everything that is in Exhibit 1?
Yes.
For example, it includes the report by a psychologist or a psychiatrist. That's also in Exhibit 1.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything you object to coming in for consideration by the board?
No.
All right. Exhibit 1 is in evidence.
Thank you, Your
Ms. Jarvis?
Honor. Then at this time, I will turn the floor over to the petitioner.
Okay. Ms. Ma, this is now your opportunity. Before you speak, I'd like to administer an oath. Would you please raise your right hand? And do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that your testimony to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. So please take your time and highlight those matters that you wish the board to focus upon, and any new information that was not contained in the petition that they should be considering at this time. Proceed.
So I first want to thank the board for allowing me to consider me for the early termination. I want to thank them for allowing me to be PIC during my probation time. I am very, very grateful for that. It is hard to find a pharmacist as well in my area. I live on the border. I live in Calexico, California. I'm on the border with Mexicali, Baja. So I'm very grateful for that. My sister at the time had just recently graduated from pharmacy school. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. I am here to serve my community. I am originally from here. I was born and raised here. And I am just grateful to have the opportunity to serve my community. That is my entire goal, to be a servant to my community. As far as what has been done to prevent any future problems of the controlled drugs and substances. So as soon as that I had discovered that the changes were made, one, of course, was I removed the controlled substances from the robot. It was the hydrocodone. At the time, there was not a C2. Shortly thereafter, it became a controlled substance, a C2, I'm sorry. So ever since I opened up the pharmacy, only a pharmacist could fill a C2 prescription. Okay, the technicians, they could help with the C3s through 5s, but not the C2s. So once that happened, the discovery removed it from the robot and just started to be really, really strict with all these types of drugs, locked it up and whatnot. So furthermore, what we've done is we, with my system, the perpetual inventory, whenever a technician fills a prescription for 3 to 5, we have to do an automatic back count continuously. Every time a prescription is filled, a comment must be put into the system and they have to count what's left. In other words, like if there's an open bottle, that's what they'll count. They'll go to the shelf and count whatever is still sealed. I also had bought the Icon, which is a very useful tool to count medications. It can prompt you for a back count. So I do that. I have it prompted for controls to require you to back count. So let's see what else. So yeah, basically that's what the changes that I've made. Let's see what else. I didn't have a formal presentation, so do you have any questions for me?
Okay, at this time, it'll be helpful for Ms. Jarvis to ask questions, and I think that will cover all the areas that the board wishes to consider. Ms. Jarvis?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So is it Ms. Ma or Dr. Ma?
Dr. Ma.
Okay. So Dr. Ma, at the time that you mentioned earlier that I didn't have the story quite right as to how you discovered the thefts. So how did you discover the thefts from these 3 individuals?
Okay. So the first part is part of it is correct. What I discovered was, so there was a hydrocodone that I was looking for. Okay, it was on a Monday, I remember clearly. And so there was this medication that came out. No, sorry. So there was a bunch of medications for a patient that were filled. And so the system was prompting me that there was a hydrocodone also ready for her. Okay, so it'll prompt you and say, hey, do you want to batch it together? Okay. So I remembered like there was an issue with a patient. She was, I don't know, I think she had made a comment that for whatever reason, want to make sure that everything was going to be delivered together and not one thing now and one thing later. So I just kind of like, okay, I'm going to take possession of this order, make sure everything gets done and put together and collated. So that was, I think, earlier part of the day. So of course, as we're filling, and it was in the back of my mind, and I was, while I was trying to research, figure out, you keep on going with your day, and I just kept sitting on it. So then I, went back in and okay, so let's see what's going on. So I went into my system and I looked at the transaction details. Okay, the transaction details will tell you exactly what happened and who touched it every step of the process. So what I saw was that this technician, well, he wasn't a technician anymore at the time. He was basically just an inputter. Okay, so he was licensed, but when I did my self-assessment, I discovered that he hadn't renewed his license. Okay, so anyways, but his whole job was just inputting. He did not fill. Okay, so he was a licensed technician. He continued to do what he would do before, which was input. But what I discovered was that so the hydrocodone got filled, it got batched on Friday. Okay, so on Friday it was batched to waiting. Okay, so what I saw was that he was the last person to touch that drug. What do I mean by that was that he changed the batch location from waiting to will call. Okay, so I asked, so he wasn't there that day, so I was doing my investigation during the daytime. So I had another employee call him that says, where is that drug? I mean, I'm confident he was the last person to touch it, okay, because he changed the batch location. So apparently he didn't answer the phone, but he turns around and he calls back. And then I asked him, hey, where's that medication? And he says, well, it should be there. And I said, well, you were the last person to touch it. You changed it from waiting to will call. I said, why did you do that? He says, well, because the person wasn't waiting. And I can remember exactly what I said. I said, now you care that much? So basically, it really doesn't matter if it's a waiting or will call. If somebody doesn't pick up the medication, it will go into will call. You'll hang it up. You don't have to go and change the batch location with creating the labels, sticking it on the bag. You don't need to do that. So I knew something was fishy. Okay, so I kept, okay, so that's the excuse he gave me. And then I revisited a little while later, kind of go back and look at it. And that's when it got returned to stock a little while later after that. So then that either confirms even more because it had the initials of the guy that we called that wasn't there. So he had another employee return it to stock. So that's the detailed version of that. So he said it ended up being returned to stock, quote unquote, but you know, it was diverted.
Okay. So how long had these individuals been working for you?
Gosh, I mean, I don't remember right now, but at least a couple years, I want to say, maybe 2 or 3 years.
And did you ever have any suspicion of them working under the influence?
No, absolutely not.
Did you ever discover whether they were stealing drugs for their own consumption or to sell to other people?
No, I did not know. I
Do
just
you know-
knew it was gone. I don't know what the details behind it.
Do you know what the outcome was of the criminal reports that you filed? Did you ever have to go to court? Were any of them ever convicted of criminal charges?
One of them, because I got, they reached out from the local like sheriff's place, and they called me, right, and they said, well, did I want restitution, this and that. I says, my sister was very sick at the time. I remember when I got the first call, I was in LA with her, and I said, well, what do I have to do? Well, you know, you'd have to go to the court and this and that, and I'm like, you know, it's just not.
So you didn't.
And I did not, and I did ask them though, so like, you know, how are you guys gonna do this, right? You got these 3 guys, how are you gonna, I guess, divvy it up, I guess, right? I mean, I really felt that one guy was the main person without really, I didn't discuss anything. After I discovered it, they pretty much, you know, got rid of him, and I really knew nothing else. But I just felt that that was the main guy. And it turns out that that guy, I think I did ask the sheriff, the guy that called me, that he had fled to Mexico and this and that. And that's why I said, you know what, I think I'm just gonna let it go. I mean, I feel that it's unfair that this guy that was probably the ringleader, would get away with it, and the other two. So I just let it go.
Okay. You mentioned that your sister was sick at this time. According to one of your letters, it appears she was diagnosed with cancer during that time period.
Well, she had actually been diagnosed before. She got diagnosed right before she got accepted to pharmacy school. So she actually delayed going to pharmacy school 1 year. And then, during her 4 years at school, had a relapse, 1 or 2 relapses. And then when she, she had to wait like a year to get to take her exam because she couldn't get her fingerprints. It was just, so anyway, so finally, thank God, she was able to come and help me. At the time, we had one pharmacist coming down to help me, John Williams. I think he wrote a recommendation letter. Well, he did write a recommendation letter. But yeah, so it was very hard.
Do you feel that her illness and you helping to take care of her at that time contributed to the disorganization in your pharmacy?
I mean, possibly. I mean, I don't know if I would say that, go to that extent.
Well, that was the implication from one of the letters that was written on your behalf.
Yeah.
And so I want to know
I
if you
mean,
thought that that was an excuse for your conduct.
I wouldn't say that I should use any kind of excuse. I don't think that's a, what's a responsibility is a responsibility. That's mutually exclusive, in my opinion.
So do you take full responsibility for the condition of your pharmacy at the time of the inspection?
I do.
Now, since this all occurred and you were placed on probation, I understand that you have recently been conducting COVID vaccinations?
Yes.
Can you explain to the board a little bit about that? What do you do and how much?
So I applied with the state to be able to vaccinate. So I did that probably in the end of January, I want to say. I knew that the retail pharmacy program was going to be like at a later phase. So I felt, okay, you know what? I think I should. It was very, all the information was kind of not very clear out there. So I thought, okay, the pharmacies eventually, we'll get our turn. But then I found out, hey, you know what? I can actually get in on the phase 1.
Dr. Ma,
which is really
Dr. Ma, hold on a second. I'm just asking you what exactly you do. Like, we don't need the whole backstory of how you got involved.
Sorry.
So
basically, we
what vaccines and how often?
Right now, we're doing it every day. We take walk-ins, and we're on My Turn, which is the state, I guess people can go in their appointment system. So it varies. I mean, yesterday we did 111, Monday we did 41. So it depends if we have second doses or not, but we've done a lot of vaccines. And
which vaccine are you administering?
We're administering right now all 3, which is Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson.
Okay. And so how long have you been involved with the COVID program? Have you been doing this just for a week or for 6 months?
I started first day, February 23rd. So 3 months.
Of this year. Okay. Have you seen, well, so let me ask you this. There, in another one of your letters, it stated that you speak 3 languages and that that's very useful for you in your community. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, I'm right on the border with Mexicali, Baja. So Calexico, I mean, we're, 95% Hispanic. So I speak fluent Spanish. My mother was actually born in Mexico. She's her parents are from China, but she grew up in Mexico. And so I grew up on the border, and both sides to me. So it's very, very useful, of course. I mean, I basically just speak Spanish at work with my employees and with the community. And there is a small Chinese community in Calexico. My Chinese is kind of, I think I can get by with those basic, very basic things, but I feel more comfortable. Most of them can speak Chinese or, I'm sorry, Spanish or English. So,
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions at this time. I'll turn it over to the board.
Okay. I have a question on your continuing education. In the materials, there were 3 different numbers stated. One was 30, one was 36, and one was 42. Do you know how many hours you've had since June of 17, from June of 17 to June of 20?
not at the top of my head.
Okay. Just kind of wondering why there are 3 different numbers. But you don't have the answer, so that's okay. I think you've adequately explained what done to prevent this from happening. So I have no further questions. I'm going to turn it over to Ricardo Sanchez. Ricardo, do you have questions?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeg Patel, you have questions?
Yeah, I have a question. At the Grand Pharmacy, do you have a theft and impairment policy?
Yes.
And some of the specifics that you could discuss that you have on the policy currently?
Oh, geez. Let's see. It reiterates what the board requires. You have to report it within a certain amount of days.
If I were your employee, brand new employee, how would you refer me to that policy so I would follow it from day one?
Well, I have a policy manual, so they could review that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is Debbie Veal.
Dr. Ma, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Are you today sitting in the office of your pharmacy?
Yes, I am.
It looks like it could use a little organization. I'm just curious if the actual benches may be a little bit better.
If my what? I'm sorry?
Your pharmacy counter area, is it more organized than what I'm seeing behind you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I don't think you've answered this question, but it looks like you're trying to get off probation a year early. What's important about getting off probation a year early?
I would have more time, I believe. The consulting comes quarterly, the inspector comes quarterly, so I would have more time. Another thing is that I would like to get a pharmacy intern if possible. It is, like I mentioned, it's hard to get a pharmacist out here where I live. So even trying to get a pharmacy intern might be difficult because I would be at least 2 to 3 hours away from the closest school. So, I mean, anything would help, especially now with the vaccination efforts, that it would be really, really helpful. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Albert Wong. Questions?
Yes, great. Debbie just asked my question. I got the answer already. That's good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Sung Oh.
Hi, Dr. Ma. Thank you for coming here and virtually. I just have a few questions. So how was it, because you continue to own your pharmacy during and after the probation. So how was that like? Was there any negative consequences? What were some of the challenges you had?
I think it was just mainly the unknown. One was whether or not the PBMs would terminate my contracts. But thank God, none of that happened. So I'm very grateful about that. I know that there was a pharmacy not too far away from me, a couple blocks, and I noticed a lot of transfers happening. So I was kind of, hey, well, what's going on? And apparently their contracts were getting terminated. I guess they had some issues. So I'm really grateful. I mean, we're at the position that I'm at, despite what happened. I'm still here. So
And I believe it's a very rural community there. How many pharmacies are there around your area?
let's see. So we have Rite Aid, Walmart. Well, there was a Calexico pharmacy that sold to CVS. So we got those three, and then just two independents.
Okay. And if you could just, I know that this happened a long time ago, but if you could just kind of tell us how long were the diversions going on again?
Well, I really don't know, like how long they were going on for.
Okay.
I discovered at this particular point in time.
And back in the day, during this time, how many prescriptions would you say you guys were filling a day, and how many employees did you have?
I sincerely don't remember. It is a long time ago. So
Okay.
if
How
I
about
had to take
now?
a guess, maybe 300 something, maybe.
Okay. How about
I
now?
don't know. Right now we're doing about 500.
Okay. And how many employees did you have then or now?
If I had to guess, maybe 9 back then. Not really sure. Right now we have about 15 with about 3 kind of part-time. There's kind of a flux, but
Okay. And are you the only pharmacist usually, or do you have another pharmacist
no,
with
I
you
have
at all
another
times?
pharmacist full-time here besides myself.
Always. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Maria, do you have questions?
Yes, I do. Dr. Ma, a couple of questions going back in history and looking at just what your recollection is. Looking back at your file, it mentions something about an inspection in 2011, which is before the diversion was reported, that you had some issues with documentation and paperwork. And I guess they looked for that to be resolved in 2014, and it wasn't resolved yet. Can you explain what happened in the past and explain that if that's been resolved now, the missing policies and paperwork?
So if I remember correctly, I think in 2011, so there was some policy that was missing. So it got corrected, sent it to the board, was filed away. So when they came to do I think that 2014 that you're mentioning is when they came to do the inspection, I believe, when the 2 inspectors came. And so they asked me for that document, and I was the only pharmacist that day. So, and I think it was like the first day of the month or something, and I couldn't locate it like that moment that they had come. And of course I found it right after they left, but that was that, if I'm not mistaken.
And so now, because I think you said you're working with a compliance pharmacist, there are no gaps in your documentation.
No, there's no gaps.
Policies and things like that. And so the other question is kind of out of a curiosity, because back in January and February, finding equipment to house Pfizer vaccine was very difficult. Was Pfizer COVID vaccine something you started with initially, and then how do you store it?
So let me think. Yeah, Pfizer was the first one. So what happened is it was through the state, through CalVax. So what they would do is they distribute it to the county, okay, our local health department. So then our local health department serves as a redistributor. So they would
Ah.
redistribute to us. Okay, so
Okay.
although the state, yeah, they required a freezer and a refrigerator, they would bring it to me refrigerated. You just have to use it within 5 days.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that, because I was thinking maybe you had a freezer, which would be very difficult as an independent pharmacist to do.
Yeah,
So,
no, I didn't have such a freezer.
wonderful community service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions from the board.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to finish at this time by inviting you to make a closing statement, Dr. Ma, with the response by Ms. Jarvis. So anything you'd like to add, please do so.
Well, I just want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to request the early termination. Thank you for I think supporting the professional pharmacy. I mean, I love my profession. I love my community. And again, I'm very thankful that I was allowed to continue to be PIC. I think that was like my thing, like, oh my gosh, I'm done, you know, if I can't be PIC. So, but I was really grateful and that I've been able to continue to serve my community the way I would like to. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And finally, Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, thank you. Petitioner's probation monitor states that petitioner has been compliant with probation since the very first moment that she was placed on probation. And therefore, I have no recommendation today, and I will defer to the expertise of the board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. This matter is now submitted and will go off the record. And, President Lippy, I'll let you take the lead in telling the board and us what to do next in terms of the closed session.
Okay, well, we have another WebEx to log into for the closed session. So I'm going to be closing the regular meeting at this time. And then we will contact again through the other WebEx in about, let's say, 10 minutes from now. In the meantime, I'd like to thank everybody who's participated in today's meeting and wish you all the best for the future. As I mentioned, this is my last meeting, so everybody do well, be safe, and I'll see those of us in a closed session in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Lippy, board president. And thank you to the entire board for your time and attention today. I appreciate it. It's a long day already. So, and we'll miss you both, Mr. Lippy and Dr. Wong. Have a good one.
Thank you, Christina.
Too long.